So TiddlerCelestial starting out with Warlock as his first class versus the Rogue of Ruoji, and that one still needs to be changed as it isn't the round of 16. This is the semifinals of the Hearthstone Cup. Fun fact, the winner of this cup will be taking home 170,000 Chinese yuan, which equates to about 27,000 US dollars. And the runner-up will be taking home 50,000 yuan, which equates to about $8,000. Backstab going to be used to get rid of that Undertaker from Tiddler, but does have an Nerubian Egg to play. And unless Ruji uses that Deadly Poison or Eviscerate, he won't get rid of that, but I assume he would leave that on the board for as long as possible. But Tiddler does have a Defender of Argus to kind of force that Nerubian Egg to come out. A lot of times you wouldn't want to ignore the egg or find a way to silence it in some way to make sure it doesn't get its Death Rattle effect off, but oh yeah, I stand corrected. It is in fact xyuan. Sorry, I have been fed wrong info then. Thank you so much for correcting me. So it is xyuan versus TiddlerCelestial. xyuan losing to Ice Fox yesterday, as I can see right now. So thank you. So as mentioned earlier, Defender of Argus being used to force that Nerubian Egg to gain an attack point. So now it can in fact attack, it can suicide into anything, and its Death Rattle effect is now being able to be popped quite effectively unless xyuan managed to pick up an Ironbeak Owl or anything like that to silence that, unless he actually has to force it, which seems to be the case now that it has been taunted. So now taking a look at xyuan's hand here, Dr. Boom, Assassin's Blade, Eviscerate, Blade Flurry I would guess, and Deadly Poison. So Ruji going to go for a simple Azure Drake play, draws another Azure Drake with it, so Tiddler now wondering what he is going to do with that one. Of course, Ironbeak Owl not going to be too used, so he's actually thinking about the Doom Guard and discards double Ironbeak Owl with it, so not the best discard there. But then again, I wouldn't imagine that xyuan would be running any minions that would need to be silenced. Maybe Gallywix, but I'm sure that Tiddler would use that to his own advantage here. I think the worst case scenario that a silence would want to be used onto xyuan would be the Boombots from Dr. Boom. But then again, they are still such a menace that would you want to waste a silence on that one? So I think that overall, those two cards would have been the best cards that Tiddler would have discarded. I guess the optimal case scenario for Tiddler would be if he would actually have discarded Coin and then an Ironbeak Owl, but anyways, Deadly Poison and Eviscerate being used to get rid of one of the taunters. Harvest Golem going to be replaced by Damage Golem, and the Blade Flurry to get rid of the entire field leaves Tiddler with a 4/4 Nerubian as the Loatheb joins Tiddler's hand. Flame Imp also being played, and that locks out xyuan out of his pretty much only out of his Assassin's Blade, or not out of his Assassin's Blade, out of his Sprint, and his Eviscerate can be played, but only with the 2 damage. Assassin's Blade is not being counted as a spell, but as a weapon rather. So xyuan can go ahead and play out Dr. Boom, pretty much the only card he could realistically play. Implosion might be pretty helpful, but Tiddler first gonna draw in. If he wants to play an Implosion, I would imagine him running his Nerubian into that Dr. Boom first. but it's not going to do that. It's just going to let one of those boombots resolve. 4 damage landing onto Tiddler. And he's going to save that implosion for a later play, perhaps. And xyuan really needs to have something here to clear out the entire board, or he is going to lose next turn. What is it going to be? It's going to be a sap, but realistically, is there anything you would want to sap at this point? If xyuan would have 9 mana, then he could perform a little bit of a barra combo. You could equip that Assassin's Blade and then sap and Eviscerate, but regardless, I don't think that he has any way to come back from this one unless that Boombot lands into something useful. No, landing into that Loa Feb, leaving it with 1 damage, or 1 health rather, excuse me. So xyuan gonna be using that sap on the Flame Imp, 6 mana left for an Eviscerate. But is instead gonna equip a weapon here and Eviscerate that Nerubian, attacking into that, but xyuan knows that he only has 1 health left. Tiddler tapping into Direwolf Alpha, and that is exactly the top deck which he needed, and TiddlerCelestial winning game 1 of this best of 5. Welcome back everyone to game 2 of the NetEase Gold Series Hearthstone Semifinals between xyuan and TiddlerCelestial. xyuan losing to Tiddler's Warlock, now playing the Warlock Mirror matchup. Tiddler going to be the one to go second. xyuan starting out with Undertaker, and I would imagine Tiddler would just go ahead and bust out the Clockwork Gnome. Or he could use that coin to bring out the Haunted Creeper, but instead is hovering over that Ironbeak Owl. So is going to go for the expected play, Haunted Creeper, and xyuan having plenty of Death Rattle minions to fuel his Undertaker there. Tiddler now drawing into Harvest Golem, but can't do anything with that, so instead using Ironbeak Owl to silence that Nerubian Egg, so it just permanently turns into a 0/2 minion with no Death Rattle effect. And xyuan's saving those Knife Jugglers until the field is empty, I'd say, because he doesn't want to sacrifice those early on. I mean, they are pretty strong for 2 mana, and the effect is amazing, but I don't think that xyuan would want to risk them being lost so early on in the game when they could have a lot of a bigger impact later on, especially with Implosion being such a good card for the Warlock. And Knife Juggler going to be played for Tiddler, and some good daggers landing though, but that Undertaker being dodged almost completely here as the Clockwork Gnome spawns in. There we have it, Implosion being in xyuan's hands right now. The first Knife Juggler and the second Knife Juggler being played, but again, those knives not really finding their marks there. Now Tiddler drawing into his second Ironbeak Owl, the first already being expended to take down that Nerubian Egg, and I would assume that the Clockwork Gnome would be traded for that one, as Tiddler just wants to get rid of those Knife Jugglers early on, and the Spectral Spider, obviously the best trade would be to trade it off with that Undertaker to weaken its second Ironbeak Owl to silence that Knife Juggler. So all Knife Jugglers are now pretty much effectless and dead for xyuan. Implosion hitting for 3 minions. and spawning free minions, excuse me. Xyuan having a full field already, but Tiddler still has a Nerubian egg which he can taunt up and sacrifice to spawn that 4/4 Nerubian, and still has the time rewinder that he got from that Clockwork Gnome, so he can bring back the Defender of Argus and buff up his minions yet again. And I feel that Xyuan would be trading off two of his imps and his knife juggler to take care of that Nerubian, or he could just use power overwhelming and only sacrifice one of them, because he might just want to keep up that board pressure. So he is going to ignore the Nerubian, not opting to clear the board. Tiddler can go ahead and bust out the Doomguard, so Time Rewinder and Harvest Golem gone, and now it's a pretty close game here, despite Tiddler being 12, only remaining at 12 health, 14 health behind Xyuan. But Xyuan is kind of running out of minions here, only has a Sea Giant in hand, and Tiddler is still ramping up, only sitting at 12 health, but still bringing out the life tap here. Now, knowing Tiddler is actually not going to go for the board clear play, it's actually quite surprising, because yesterday Tiddler was playing very, very calculated with his Warlock. He would not be aggressive, he would always clear out the board first, but going for the aggressive play right now, and looking at Xyuan right now, who's sitting at 15, has a Direwolf Alpha, but can't finish the game with the cards he has. But oh, there is a top deck for him. So now Xyuan is wondering how he is going to play this one out. Direwolf Alpha going to be the first card of choice, and Sea Giant being hovered over. He's kind of doubting what he wants to play here. So does manage to bring out the Sea Giant. Doomguard will fall though, as well as the Nerubian. So now Tiddler with that Abusive Sergeant, and only has a low value minions, has a maximum of 9 damage on the board here. Can't do anything with that. And he's shaking his head knowing there is no way I'm getting out of this one alive. But is there an option still? So let's take a quick look. Abusive Sergeant to buff the low attack to 7/5, and then running it into the Sea Giant because there are no other options. And then just hope that Xyuan doesn't have lethal next turn. So of course he does have, let's see, 5 damage on the board here. Tiddler having 8 health left. And there it is. Abusive Sergeant for 7 damage. Let's see what that is going to be. Double Wind Fury and a taunt. And Abusive Sergeant coming out, and that Wind Fury is more than enough for Xyuan to take back a game and equaling up the score 1-1. Hey everyone, welcome back to Game 3 in this series. This is the NetEase Gold Series Hearthstone Semifinals between Xyuan and TiddlerCelestial. We've just seen Xyuan beating Tiddler's Warlock in a Warlock Mirror matchup, so Tiddler now forced to his second class, which is Druid at this point. Looking at the cards in Tiddler's hand, has a fair number of cards there, but not anything he would want to play right now. Mana cost being a little bit too high. Xyuan also not having the best of cards in his hand, with double Doomguard being in there. Enhanced Meccano might prove useful later on though, but it seems like Xyuan is now just going to fill up the board. And now Tiddler probably going to swipe here with the, well, no, decides to go for Keeper of the Grove instead, leaving all that standing. Probably gonna swipe next turn, though, depending on what xyuan is gonna play. And Handsome Meccano is gonna come out. What's it gonna be? Wind Fury and Divine Shield for those two minions. So TC is going to be used, or MC Tech, but he only gets a Spectral Spider from that one, so pretty much a 50-50% chance of getting a good minion, I'd say. Sea Giant coming out very, very early, and no big game hunter to snipe that one out. And xyuan is definitely in a very good position here. 5 mana for Tiddler, has to play the Sludge Belcher at this point to set up his defenses, by a little bit even. And Tiddler knows he's not in the best of spots right now. But if Tiddler can hold on, I feel like he might be able to make a comeback with those Ancient of Lore. Doomguard gonna come out very early in that. Flame of Good be used to get rid of that slime, and Tiddler taking that 8 damage. xyuan playing really well right now. Scenarios not so useful now, and sitting only at 6 mana. Tiddler has to do something here. Decides to swipe the board so that he doesn't take too much damage here, and use lots of mana for a Wild Growth. So next turn, Ancient of Lore probably going to be a card of choice here. Abusive Sergeant and a Harvest Golem now coming out. Tiddler only sitting at 10 health or at 5 health at this point. xyuan just having so much control over this game. Innervate being drawn here, but Tiddler gonna go ahead and play that Ancient of War here. Transform to get rid of that Abusive Sergeant, sitting now with 4 health. And what is xyuan gonna top that care? If it is Nine Beak Owl, then he has game. I can't really see just yet. No, is a Clockwork Gnome and a Loafeb being played as well. So another 5/5 to worry about. And xyuan, of course, getting rid of that Ancient of War. But Tiddler has a second one up his sleeve. And Tiddler decided to concede. xyuan. Welcome back to Game 4 in the NetEase Gold Series Hearthstone Semifinals between xyuan and TiddlerCelestial. xyuan doing really well with his Warlock now winning 2 games in a row, and Tiddler now forced to his last class, which is Paladin. Flame Imp going to be the turn 1 play here, obviously, but is he going to coin for the Voidwalker? No, he is not. Now Tiddler not being able to play anything except reinforcing himself. Bring out that Silver Hand Recruit. Now with that Knife Juggler, coin Voidwalker. Hopefully that knife is going to land into that Silver Hand Recruit. That's what xyuan is thinking. Knife landing into Tiddler though, and taking 3 more damage from that Flame Imp, who Tiddler drawn into Sludge Belcher. But Tiddler can't do anything until turn 4 at the very least, till he can play that Consecrate. And he's just hoping that xyuan has another low value minion to play. Knife landing into Tiddler yet again. Silver Hand being taken down. Tiddler has to play to Consecrate at this point to clear out the board as effectively as possible, but he will take a lot more damage next turn regardless from the 2 Spectral Spiders and the Undertaker on the board. xyuan now drawing into Nerubian Egg and another Knife Juggler. So Egg being played and Undertaker being buffed up to free 2. Tiddler taking 5 damage. Now Tiddler finally at 5 mana can bring out that Sludge Belcher, but is actually going for a true state of a champion here. He will take 1 damage, of course, because it will only kill him for 1. I can't actually see Tiddler's health right here because of the overlay being a little bit messed up. I think Tiddler's health is now sitting at 9. Xyuan drawing into a quartermaster, but has to play that Sludge Belcher at this point. We'll take another one damage now. Tiddler sitting at 8. And Xyuan is probably going to run one of his Spectral Spiders into that Sludge Belcher and then play the Implosion, but Power Overwhelming now being a card. Implosion being used. 4 damage! His board not being filled up completely. That's why I would have probably attacked with one of the Spectral Spiders first, because if it does 4 damage, that would have been the optimal play, I feel. Because if he did that, then... Anyways, Xyuan now forcing the 4/4 Nerubian out on the field, and Tiddler now sitting at only 7 health. If I can see correctly. Although Peacekeeper now coming out, nerfing that Nerubian to a 1/4. Plastic Shred now also coming out, but it seems like Tiddler is saying GG. So he's only sitting at 7 health if I'm not mistaken. The last card being drawn, Dark Iron Dwarf, and that is the nail in the coffin for TiddlerCelestial. Xyuan with a free game sweep on Warlock, winning the game and moving on towards the final.